what are your top areas?
So we're a national firm, so we service the entire U.S. We're the only company in the country that does that. We're currently in about 38 states with projects now in 700 cities. Our main hubs are in San Francisco, Denver, Dallas, Austin, Houston, Nashville, Indianapolis, Minneapolis, Atlanta, Boca Raton, Naples, um, and Philadelphia. I think that's the majority of our main spots that we're in. It's where our hubs are, but we service the whole country.
And what are some of your favorite, I guess what are some of your, I guess, your fortes within that design field? Is it more on the lighting side? I saw that you had a background in the lighting area, but you also mentioned audio, visual. Do you feel like you have more of a forte in the lighting field or installation field or all of the above?
Well, all of the above, but I'd say lighting and lighting design is one of the most interesting parts of the puzzle. It's just a much more transformational piece of what we do for every space. You don't have to have music on or a video source TV on to experience light. I mean, with lighting, it's just a natural thing for every day when you wake up to when you go to bed. The other things kind of backfill and make the experience enhanced. But lighting is the backbone and kind of the foundation of how you feel and how you experience everything you do all day, every day, no matter where you are, what space you're in. So I'd say lighting is the most important part of the puzzle for sure.
Do you feel like lighting is one of the most important or integral parts of our lives in the daytime or the evening?
It's both, right? Because in the daytime, as you wake up, the way lighting affects your body, it increases your serotonin levels and helps you wake up in the day and get ready for your day. And then as the day progresses, it energizes you throughout the day. And then as the day comes, to an evening into the nighttime, it produces the melatonin that helps you get to sleep and go to rest. So if you have those things all in tune, it helps you live your day and be energized when you should be, and also be able to relax when you should also be able to relax.
What are some of the key ingredients to I guess, a good lighting setup? Like, what are some of the good key ingredients to that for daytime versus nighttime? Is it recessed lighting? Is it ambient lighting? Is it a certain color?
It's all those things, yeah. And so what we have now in our technologies these days is you can create these different experiences with recessed architectural lighting, linear tape type lighting, accent lighting, or even decorative fixtures, and you can change the color of the light, whether it's going to be a color temperature of white or a red, green, blue. So there's all kinds of ways you can do that, and we have those technologies now that can really customize any space to make whatever the atmosphere you're trying to achieve pretty simple to do. Whereas before in the past, you didn't really have those options.
Right, yeah. And what do you think a lot of those options stemmed from? Do you feel like it came from overseas, or whatever, was a lot of it designed or invented or came out of America?
Well, the number one lighting control company in the world is called Lutron, and they're actually a U.S. based company. And they have their facilities out in Pennsylvania, and they're a worldwide company. And they invented the dimmer switch we have on our walls. They invented that, in the '60s, I believe. So that obviously transformed the way we were able to adjust light. And then now they have products like Ketra and those allow us to do things with the temperature of the light, the color of light, which we haven't seen before. And I've had the luxury of visiting their factories in Pennsylvania and Texas. And so yes, they are US based products. So it's not something that we have to rely on from an overseas manufacturer, which is great. So it's nice to be able to say that too.
And what are your thoughts on I know for us, we've been dabbling in the light game from quite some time, actually. Some of our team members went to SCAD, and I've been doing art since I was a kid 4. and I went to Cornell. But make a long story short, I know that some people they take the lighting seriously, right? Like we know that there's LED bulbs versus non-LED bulbs. There's different shapes and different frames of the bulb and skins. And then there's a new technology that people are trying and testing out with Govee. Govee has outdoor lights. Some of those products. What do you think about those products that are more affordable versus just doing a dimmer and you can control it from your phone? How effective do you feel that those are?
Well, from my perspective, because I integrate the entire experience in a home, it's not just a matter of, if you can do it from, the interface that the manufacturer provides. It has to be able to scale across multiple interfaces so the client can use it in a simple fashion. And so usually those types of products are tested and they're developed around different platforms to be compatible on multiple ways of using it. So I don't like my clients to feel like it's a science experiment. I want them to have something that's reliable and it's predictable every time they go to use it. So I stick with manufacturers and products that have been around, that are tried and true. And I know there's always cool stuff that comes and goes. And I just don't want my clients to feel like, it's one of those things they're being tested upon, right? It has to be something that they use and know how to use, and it works every time. So that's why I try and steer towards the tried and true brands that create these products for that reason.
Yeah, because some dimmers, like you said before, and some control interfaces, they can be a little bit overwhelming, right?
Sure.
Some of the dimmer switches that I've gotten from, I don't want to say Amazon, but you already know. They're touch screen. Some of them look like the size of like a size of an iPhone 4 or whatever, and you touch it. And like you said before, it's the interfaces. It could be overwhelming. Sometimes you touch it and it doesn't respond to you, and you're having company and you have people coming over and you're fighting the light switch, and that can become overwhelming, as well as sometimes your Govee or a Hue light bulb or a Lifix light bulb or some of these newer light technologies that are from China. You touch the interface and it doesn't respond back because your Wi-Fi signal is weak, or maybe you didn't press the
Sure.
Bluetooth button. So for you, you're saying right.
Yeah.
So for you know what I'm saying.
Oh yeah.
So right, it's very it's overwhelming. It's frustrating at times. You're trying to entertain your friends and your guests, and you're trying to make an impression, and you're also trying to change your mood, like you said, because some certain colors really make us feel a certain type of way. Like reds for me make me feel, excited, but yet if it's a hot red, it'll make me feel vibrant and just, yeah, and just very curious, and also just and excited and happy, and just and then there's blues that make you feel more calm, and there's lighter blues. But sometimes when you have these light fixtures, and even with the sound systems, how are you integrating these sound systems with the light fixtures? Because me and you both know that some of the residential products that they have in place, they don't always talk to each other. Like the Sonos doesn't talk to you know what I'm saying? The Sonos doesn't talk to the projector doesn't talk, because everybody's doing throw projectors, right? And throw projectors alone, you can travel with them. I'm about to go overseas. I'm taking my projector with me. I'm packing in my little two carry-ons to Asia. But for the most part, those projectors, they've created an atmosphere for me, when I project things onto the wall. Not only can I see things, I have to squint to see a computer. If I have a certain amount of lumens, I can actually view and see what's going on the website that I'm working on, right? Or a PowerPoint presentation. Or so for me, it also creates an environment not only of work, but it also creates an environment of presentation and environment of mood. So when I splash on the wall, it just creates a creative atmosphere for me. So how does that all work when you try to integrate those lighting systems with some of those entertainment systems? Like what's the best ones that you recommend?
Well, understanding the expectation is I would say the first and foremost of how we would put together a design. If it's something like you said, you want to travel with it, that's going to be something portable and something small, lightweight. If it's a permanent installation where a client, has a room for it, we would pick the products based on what the solution needs to be and the expectations of how it's supposed to perform. So there are various manufacturers that make all these different products, and so it's hard to say without understanding the client's needs and the space it's going to live in. But that's something that we do well, is we make sure we understand what it is that they want it to do. Because the worst part is if you put something in that's not going to perform how they expect, or it's not reliable in a way all the time, or if it's not user friendly. So if they have guests over, or maybe the in-laws come over, or they've got a babysitter or someone coming over. Everyone has to be able to walk in that space and know how to use that without really being through a training session. So if you can't figure it out pretty quickly and intuitively, you kind of failed. So we try to make sure we understand who's going to be using it, what they're expecting it to do, and then we choose the products based on that.
And what was one of your, if you can give us one of your, I guess, best success stories where you integrated something with an entertainment system, a home entertainment system that you felt like you really, scored big, so to speak.
Sure. I remember I did a private theater for a client, and I started to talk to him about like what his motivations were, if he's a big movie watcher, and if he was into audio. And his response to me was, I really could care less about movies or audio or even the video. And I said, well, why are you spending $500,000 to build this theater room? And his response to me was, I have three daughters. They're all in their 20s. They're going to be, getting married at some point, and hopefully having my grandkids. And I want to create a space where my grandkids want to come to grandpa's house, so that the memories are made in my home. They don't want to go somewhere else, and they're always begging to come back. So that's pretty cool. When you can,
Yeah.
build a place where like you're making memories and experiences with your family and your friends. And so that to me is more powerful than any technology we provide. But the technology is the backbone in creating those areas, that the memories and the stories that happen for years after you've left can still be thought about, which is pretty cool.
Right, it makes those lasting impressions to make it memorable. That makes perfect sense, especially right now, post-pandemic. I feel like a lot of us, we want to get out the house, but it's kind of like, why am I leaving the house? You know what I'm saying? It's like I left the house and I got my car, I got gas, or if you have an electric vehicle, you got to charge your car. It's kind of like, why did I leave in the first place when I have my own, like I have my own theater, like I can get a digital screener from a client. So I would say, I was gonna ask for you too, is since you do so much in the design space and you have your fingers in so much, what are some of your, I guess, your highest level of projectors that you enjoy working with, or you feel that are easiest to work with on the consumer side versus the commercial side? Because I know a lot of people love projectors right now.
Sure, I'd say a good baseline is going to be a Sony projector. Some of the more powerful projectors are going to be made by Barco and Digital Projection. They make some pretty awesome projector engines. So depending on what the application is, how big the screen is, how bright you need it to be, how far away from the screen it is, will determine which one you select.
And then how many lumens do you recommend for a person to have a bright room, say like the one I'm in right now?
Well, I see a big window in the back there. So if you were to try to watch TV in the room you're in, I would say you probably need at least 5,000 lumens from where you're sitting, from what I can see. But
Yeah.
it's really one of those things where you can have a way to dial back. So you never want to have not enough, because then it can get washed out. That's like one of those sports bars you go into and trying to watch a game, and you barely can see the score because the lights are on in the room. So you want to make sure you've got plenty of brightness, which is usually a pretty powerful light engine. And now I would say we're talking about projectors. You probably want to look more towards a laser rather than a bulb, right? Because bulbs burn out over time. You got to replace them. That can be costly. Whereas a laser is going to last you quite a long time without having to replace those bulbs.
And then what are your thoughts on what do you cast the projection onto? Do you like some of the chromatic paints or some of the green screen paints versus having the good old projector screen?
Projector screens are typically the way to go. I mean, there's a few. There's Stewart Film is kind of the gold standard. That's an Emmy award winning actual screen. You have Seymour screens. You have Screen Innovations. Um, yeah, you have Firefly. There's a few different materials that do that. But I would even say is if you're trying to look at projection screens nowadays, you can even look at direct view LED video walls that are super bright. You don't need a two-piece system where there's a projector and a screen. You can use it as digital art when it's not being used as a video source for a TV or a movie. So you can have something up there that's a beautiful landscape, or some kind of a picture up on the wall, like a large frame, Samsung frame TVs, rather than a projector that when you turn it off, it's just a big blank space. So that's kind of neat to have that dual purpose as well.
And then in terms of sound system, me and you both know that sound is everything. And I was going to ask you a quick few questions about sound systems. What are some of your go-to sound systems that you prefer for some of the residential clients versus your commercial clients, and why?
It just depends if it's being used for a theater purpose or if it's distributed audio. If you want it to be hidden, if it's an invisible speaker, if it's a small aperture speaker, if you want it to match a fixture. There are literally dozens of speaker manufacturers. I couldn't even name them all because there's so many. So what we do is we try to figure out what the application is first, and then decide, how they want their sound to look, basically.
And so if somebody wanted the sound to be tucked in, or hidden, what are some of your go-to speakers for those that are for more residential?
The two main residential manufacturers that do that are going to be Origin Acoustics or a company called Sonance and James.
And what about some, do you get a lot of clients that actually like the shape of the speakers that they,
Oh
because
yeah,
I know a lot, yeah, I know a lot of clients that will go like, I like the shape of the speaker. I'm
funny you
like,
say that because I have this right next to me because I was just talking about this earlier. It's basically a square speaker,
oh,
round.
wow, nice.
Yeah, so you can barely see them on my camera, but yeah. So essentially, what you'd like to do is, if it's in a situation where it's in the ceiling, rather than having a big old speaker like this, you want it to match the lighting fixture that's nearby. So if you've got a 3-inch or 4-inch square or round speaker, we can now do 3-inch, 4-inch round or square speakers next to the light. So when you look up at the ceiling, it's not as visible. It doesn't seem like it stands out. It blends in better. It makes for what we try to call a quiet ceiling. It's not very busy and noisy.
And then when you're doing, say for instance, if you want somebody that wants something a little bit more rambunctious or boisterous, what kind of speaker system would you pick for that?
Well, there's a bunch. I mean, Bang& Olufsen has been it's the oldest speaker company in the world, and that's pretty awesome stuff. And it's more like an art piece. So yeah, I would say if you're looking for something that's more of an art piece, it sounds incredible. Bang& Olufsen's going to be the way to go. Bowers and Wilkins makes some great stuff. Focal, there's a bunch of those too. It just depends on the style you're looking for, and how you match whatever the design is for the room.
And I was gonna ask you for yourself, what do you have in your home?
It's funny you say that. I get asked that a lot. I'm kind of a nomad, so I'm always on the road. I'm always traveling, so I haven't actually had the time to sit down and create exactly what I would like. And so who knows when that'll be? Maybe it will be someday. I don't know. I'm more of a traveler. I like to be out and about, on beaches, on boats, and I don't really sit too long in some one spot to be able to create those environments for myself.
And have you done any boats by any chance, or any yachts?
Yes, our company does do boats out of our Florida Boca Raton offices. So if there were a situation where there's a super yacht coming in and wanted to get some upgrades done to it, we can handle that as well.
And then is there anything that we haven't touched on that you will want to speak to?
I would say motorized shades are a big thing, because just like lighting, lighting control and lighting fixtures controls electric light, whereas motorized shades control the natural light, right? It's like the window behind you. If you had a motorized shade, you could just put that down and cut that natural light out as well.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of cool battery technologies with the motorized shades now, where you can put in a battery operated shade that you can expect 3 to 5 years of operational use out of it, which is pretty cool before you have to change the batteries. And that's a cool way to do natural light control as well.
And do you feel like I know a lot of young people, or millennials or Gen Z, of course, they love the motorized shades. You can control it with Alexa or Google Voice, but What do you feel are some of the better motorized shades? Do you like the ones that are more like a muslin material or within hotels, or is there any kind of specific material that you think is best for those or color?
Well, materials are usually determined by the design of the space. I would say, as far as the manufacturers of the products and the motors, Lutron is going to be a great product to build the motors for the drapery tracks and the roller shades. And Crestron also makes some pretty awesome motors as well. And then the actual fabric is just a matter of how it should look. But you want to make sure it works before, it looks good.
Right, that's true. And then, are there any tips with when it comes to the motorized? I guess like any not tips, but yeah, I guess any tip guides or any kind of like ways to cut cost on those because motorized shades they can be quite expensive when you're going for like systems that are to measure, made to measure.
Yeah,
Are there any-
if you go with a battery option, you eliminate the cost of having to run the wiring and hardwire it and all the material you need for the hardwired part of that. So I would say a nice battery shade is going to go a long way and last you, forever. So that's what I would recommend.
And then, what words of advice would you offer a person that's aspiring to be in your field of work, in your position in life?
I would just dive in and attend every seminar, trade show, CEU available, and just try to learn as much as you can. And just there's a lot of ways to do what we do, and there's no exact best way per se, because there's a lot of different opinions on how it should be done. But just learn everything you can, and most importantly, listen to what the clients are trying to achieve and their expectations, and then match up whatever it is that you've learned with what they're trying to achieve. So you're not trying to mismatch the solution to a client that may not want exactly what it is that you're um, providing them. Really,
And do you feel just a follow up? Do you feel that it's necessary to go to a traditional institution or scholastic environment to gain this information or knowledge about what you're saying, or you think it's good enough to go into trade and gain an apprenticeship as well? Is that just as effective?
yeah, I would say go straight into a company and just start working. That's the best way, because there really isn't a program that I know of, at least for this type of environment. Once you get into the company, you can go to resources like CEDIA, that's CEDIA. There's a lot of educational courses there to learn, how to be an installer or programmer, and then lean on the manufacturers as well. Like find the top manufacturers of the products that create whatever it is you're working with, and ask them for help in their education platforms and pathways, because they have a lot of that as well.
Like I'm sure they probably have influencer programs, and then I'm sure like there's some opportunities for sponsorship, for product sponsorship, probably as well.
Yeah, I believe they do those things as well. If you're out there helping out with their products and learning what they're doing and sharing what it is they're trying to uh, you share an experience with their clients. I know that they do those types of programs. Yeah.
And then I guess I was going to ask you my last final question would be, was there anyone who influenced you in this realm or motivated you, or are there any top individuals in your realm that you would like to pay homage to or give them their flowers, so to speak?
Um, from from uh from my earliest days, I think it was probably a matter of people telling me you couldn't do it, more so than being mentors.
Did you have anybody that made an impact? So those people, they pretty much made an impact on you regardless.
Yeah, but
Because you're
in one
showing
way or
them.
another, it got me to where I'm at, and I'm happy where I am. But I can't think of a single individual that encouraged me to do what I'm doing now from when I started doing it.
Why do you think that is in the design world? I feel like it is very I guess cutthroat to so to speak, but but why do
Yeah,
you
I
think
mean,
that is?
well, in the technology side of the design world, 25 years ago or 30 years ago or so, there wasn't a lot of paths to follow, right? So like in the design world in general, I'm sure that there are, a much more paths of history that you could study and learn and say that's cool, I want to be like that or do those types of things. But coming from the technology side, a lot of these things didn't even exist, right? So the time I was getting into it, it was more so like a trial and error, and this stuff is cool. Let's play with it. Let's take it apart. Let's build it back up. So I didn't have a whole lot of, influences or mentors. Like no one in my family is really tech oriented. So I just like to tinker with stuff and kept myself busy.
And are there any I guess next projects you want to speak to, or anything you can announce that we don't already know about? Upcoming book, or a major project with a stadium, or
Um, there are some really cool projects coming up that I would say look up bravas.com, BRAVAS.com, and follow that over the next few months, and you'll see a lot of cool new stuff coming up.
nice. Well,
Pretty
thank you
excited
so
for it.
well, thank you so much, Justin. I really appreciate you taking this time out with us. Sorry about the whole antiquated situation in the beginning.
Yeah, you're
But at
good,
the
no
same,
problem. Thanks for having me.
yeah, it was a pleasure speaking with you. I feel like you really opened a lot of people's eyes to the design world, and I feel like you really spoke to being a good listener and being a good communicator, because I feel like that's most important. And also reading your environment, not just the person that you're speaking to, your client, but also the environment, the space. And I feel like a lot of designers, they don't read the environment, and they also don't take in the surrounding aesthetics, right? So like you
Sure.
spoke to all those things, and like I feel like that's what artists like they need to hear, right. It's because all those things that they influence us, good or bad. So I thank you so
Sure.
much for like really enunciating that and reiterating that, because I think that's very important for a great designer to be able to listen and be able to take in the surroundings. So thank you so much for taking out time in your busy schedule. Have a wonderful weekend. And yeah, and keep doing what you're doing. You're inspiration to us, and we really appreciate you. Keep doing what you're doing, and kudos to you.
Thank you, sir. Anytime.
All right, thank you.
Bye bye.